These are most shocking JFK assassination secrets ever exposed on Joe Rogan Podcast. In episode 1400, Joe Rogan and Tony Hinchcliffe revisit JFK's speech on secrecy, deep state power, and shadowy agendas.
That is the place. Like, I think if I had the choice, if there was one place where I could go in a time machine and just peek for like an hour, just look around, and then come back to present day, I think that would be the spot. I'd want to see what Egypt was like when they were building the pyramids, like in the middle of construction, when they were at their peak, when they were building the Great Pyramid of Giza. Like, what was society like? Like, what were the people like? If you could just be a fly on the wall and no one knew you were there. You see, if they saw you, they'd be like, what are you doing? What is this thing on your wrist? Who are you? Why your teeth look so good? How come you don't look deformed?
I'd go back to the I'd be on the grassy knoll that day with JFK.
Oh, yeah, that's a good
Dallas.
one, too.
That's a good one, too.
Would you be on the grassy knoll, or would you be in the book depository? See, if you're in the book depository, then you know that Lee Harvey Oswald isn't there.
I think he may have even been there. I think he may have even been firing, but I don't believe that he was the only one.
I'm with you. That's exactly what I think. I think he could have been in on it, and maybe he didn't even fire it.
Right.
But when he said that he was a patsy, you know, the way he said it, when he got arrested, he said, "I'm just a patsy." That's like a guy who knew he was going to get in trouble for something.
Yeah.
That's not like a regular guy. He was not a regular guy. They easily could have talked him into doing something fucked up, and then they did something as well and blamed it all on him, and they had him set up for it.
Yeah.
He seemed like a wacky dude.
Someone that did that and made that shot and really wanted him dead would own it. Quite the opposite. At that point, you're not trying to not go to prison.
Well, maybe he is, but it didn't seem like it. He didn't seem like a guy who just shot someone. He also didn't seem like a guy who was shocked that he was getting arrested for something. But you could make someone a patsy back then. That was real. You could set someone up, and then you hired Jack Ruby to just run up on the guy and shoot him. And he just did it. Now the guy's dead. Jack Ruby drops the gun. They put him in a nice jail cell. I don't know if it was a nice jail cell. I have no idea.
And then what happened to Jack Ruby? Something happened to him,
Died
right?
in jail. Got cancer.
How much do you know about those three guys that they thought might have been it?
Maybe that's John Gotti.
The three hobos or the three guys under the bridge?
Well, one of them was Woody Harrelson's dad.
Yeah, they were in the CIA, I read, or they thought
Something.
they were. Who knows?
Look, Kennedy was not a popular guy by any stretch of the imagination with a giant chunk of the population. Think about if as many people hate Trump right now, if that's only like, I mean, I don't know how many people hated Kennedy, but I know that the Bay of Pigs was a huge disaster. A lot of military people hated him for that. Supposedly he wanted to get rid of the NSA. Supposedly he wanted to get rid of he wanted to do something about the Federal Reserve. There was a lot of things that he wanted to do, apparently. Maybe it was the CIA. I think it was the CIA. He was trying to disband one of those. But he had a disdain for secrecy and secret societies. You know, like there was a lot of these like skull and bones type things that like George W. Bush was in, or Herbert Walker Bush, rather, his dad. Mm-hmm. Was George G.W. in Skull and Bones too?
They both were, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, all that wacky shit. Like, what are you doing? You dressing up like a druid? What are you doing? Are you burning an effigy? You know, a lot of people thought that was all fake until Alex Jones and John Ronson was with him, right? Yes.
I don't know who was with him, actually.
Yes. I'm pretty sure. Google that. Make sure I'm right. I'm pretty sure it was Ronson. I'm pretty sure Ronson was. I know it was. He was talking about it. He was talking about it on the podcast about, you know, like that they couldn't believe what they found. So this is this place, Bohemian Grove, and the idea was that all the elites would go there and they would engage in these occult rituals.
This is in America?
Yeah, it's in California.
Oh.
It's like Northern California. And so you hear about this and you're like, what? Like, if you heard about that, like, hey, there's a place. Former presidents go, top-ranking generals and heads of state and bankers and famous artists. They go to this place and they do occult rituals. Yeah. They perform occult rituals.
Part 4 of The Secret Rulers of the World, directed by John Ronson. He travels with Alex Jones, too.
There you go.
What's that, a Netflix?
I don't know where you could find it at the moment. It was on.
You can definitely see it on YouTube.
Right.
You can definitely see the interaction on YouTube. So Alex films these people worshiping Moloch, the owl god, and doing this thing. He completely sneaks in, just acts like he belongs there. Just let him in. They have a gate, guarded gate. Just fucking, hey, how you doing? He looks like a Republican.
Yeah.
They let him through. He is there filming them. They have an effigy, like a bunch of straw and shit that's supposed to represent a person that you're sacrificing to Moloch, the owl god. They're dressed in these crazy hoods. They put the effigy down. They say they have those loudspeakers. They have this crazy speech they give. It's so weird. But these are like legitimate, wealthy, famous people, politicians. These people are heads of banks and shit. And they're going there and they're dressing up. This is real.
Right.
Like, this isn't, like, you hear things like that. You're like, well, that's nonsense, right? That's nonsense. That doesn't really happen. There's not a real, like, Bilderberg meeting. They don't really get together and fucking pretend they're burning hookers.
They really do.
They really do. Yeah. And so he films this. And, like, it's one of the first things that got me thinking about conspiracies. As much as you can think that Alex is a wacky guy, he's certainly eccentric. And he's not always right, you know? And that's part of the problem when you're being lied to left and right by so many different things. You can get real off on things. And he did.
Right.
He's gotten, it's been beaten into the ground. But the fact is that there are a certain amount of these things out there like that. And if it wasn't for Alex releasing that video, I think most people would think that's nonsense. But when you see that video, you have to go, okay, what is this? What is going on? Are they really dressing up? Is this really an occult ritual? What is this? Have you ever seen it?
No.
Pull up a video, Bohemian Grove, just so we can watch the video.
The pictures and stuff, because the video that he has is really blurry and.
Yeah, but well, you'd have to hear it too, because there's like a booming loudspeaker. Yeah. But see what you can see. It's kind of blurry, but. These guys, I mean, there's like, it's famous, this place.
So do you think these people all work with each other?
See, he's got this hidden camera footage of these people with torches dressed up like druids going over, and they're carrying the effigy, and then they're going to sacrifice it and light it on fire. Like, dude, this is like really rich, famous, powerful people are all here watching this. Look at that. Back that up so we can hear what it's, or we can read what it says. Back it up a little bit.
It's got someone's talking over it too.
Yeah, but I don't want to hear it, Jamie. I just want to see the writing.
Yeah, well, it keeps going.
Yeah, but can't you? No. What I'm saying is, make it so I can't hear it. En masse rends the stones of Babylon. Like, so they're like. What do they even say? Play it out a little bit. Like, look at this. For beauty is eternal. So they have this, and we bow to beauty everlasting. It's a very strange shit. So they're yelling this out. This guy's got this on a loudspeaker, and they're engaging in this ritual. And then they bring over this effigy and they light it on fire. They have a boat in the water. Like, it's weird, dude. Just imagine being a guy who's worth $1 billion, and this is what you do for fun. You're going to get together with Mike and Harry, who runs Microsoft, and you're all going to go and pretend you're burning something. Like, look at this.
But did they become billionaires and then do this, or is it a chicken and the egg?
That's the question. That's what people think, like, about the elites. Right? People think they're, well, and in some families, it is true.
I mean, if these people are all meeting up once a year to burn a stack of hay shaped like a lady, why wouldn't they invest in each other and,
Of course.
They're all bankers and successful.
Yeah. Well, that was the thing about Skull and Bones, is that they all had something on you. Everyone knew something. Because you all sucked everybody's dick and took Polaroids of it and dressed up like a munchkin. You know, I mean, that's what they all did. They did some wacky shit. Like, they probably all got fucked.
It's hard to think like what you could have had on somebody before porn search history.
They probably all fucked each other. Right. There probably was one guy who was like the top Skull and Bones guy, and he's just really into fucking dudes, and he just convinced everybody, you know, it'd be a crazy thing, man. How about we have a group, super secret group, and you can't tell anybody about it. How are we gonna stop people from telling people? I know. We're going to film me fucking him in the ass. But really, he's just trying to fuck these guys in the ass. That's his goal, is just to fuck guys in the ass. He's like, man, this is getting harder and harder to trick these dudes. I need to figure out a new way. So he comes up with this super exclusive elite club. It's called Skull and Bones.
Yeah.
Do you want in? Yeah, well, we ought to be able to trust you. You can trust me. I won't tell anybody. I don't believe you, Timmy. Timmy, I don't believe you. I think you would tell. We're going to have something on you. Well, I mean, what do you mean? We're going to have you do something that you don't want to do. And that way, if you ever say anything about us, we'll tell everybody about you. Oh, I mean, I really do want to be in the club.
Well,
guaranteed that's how it went down.
That's crazy.
One alpha gay dude just tricked a bunch of guys.
Isn't that?
And if it's not Skull and Bones, maybe they don't do that. But there's a group out there that does. Yeah. There's one of those groups. One of those crazy groups that's just run by dudes just donking dudes. Right now he's 35. He's still in college. Everybody's like, Mike, why do you still go to school here? Someone's got to make sure.
That's how everything starts, right? All these.
That's the boneyard. The bone house. The bone house. That our ethics are true. I'm here to uphold the strictest interpretation of the boneyard's rules. And I don't trust you.
Gotta show your commitment.
Yeah, everybody bathes in oil first. It's like, why are we in oil? What's going on? Just these weird fucking secret societies. You ever heard the Kennedy speech about secret societies? It's fucking creepy. When it turns out that he eventually gets murdered, it's creepy.
Did you watch
See The Irishman? Hey.
No,
Jinx?
didn't see it.
No.
Good? It's
Spoiler
about,
alert.
yeah.
Half the movie's about that.
Yeah, no, it is good. So many people told me that they hated it that I was shocked when I watched it, and it was good.
Pull up Kennedy's speech about secret societies. Because Kennedy had this speech about secret societies that many people have speculated had to do with the CIA or had to do with...
The movie brings up an angle I didn't know, is that he hired his brother to become the attorney general, and he started going after...
Yes, the
them.
mob.
Yeah, I didn't know that.
Oh, yeah, he did right after they helped him get into office. Well, here's the other thing about the Kennedys. They were drug dealers. 100%.
Bootleggers.
Yes, they were selling whiskey or moonshine or whatever the fuck it was.
The movie says the dad was too old at the time to get a hold of the sons. Like, they were trying to get old man Kennedy to tell his kids, crack the whip, get him in line, but they couldn't get to him because he was just staring out windows.
Oh, he was
about to
done
die.
already. Yeah, that makes sense.
Oh.
Listen, man, they were illegal alcohol salesmen. They made a bunch of money selling alcohol illegally, just like a drug dealer does. Same thing. The fact that those folks went on to become this incredibly powerful family, and then two brothers get publicly assassinated, fucking A, man. Two of them. The fact that you can keep guys around that you know will whack somebody for you like that. There'll be a Jack Ruby or a Sirhan. Just trick a guy. Figure out what you got to say to that guy to get that guy to run up on that dude and shoot him in the stomach.
I mean, if you put a gun to somebody's head and you tell them that if they don't do this, we're going to kill you and your family, that's it. Pretty much you got them, especially...
Sometimes.
You know, like in the movies when they show someone a picture of their family and they show them a picture of their house or whatever. You know what I mean? Like, I know where you live. I know...
I think it's more than that. I think it's guys that you can tell that they're going to do a good thing and they're going to go down in history and they're going to live in infamy, like for their own personal gain. Like, you're talking about people that are so dumb, you're willing to you're gonna lose the rest of your life because someone's telling you to go shoot Bobby Kennedy and you're going to do it in a restaurant in front of everybody. It was a hotel.
That was in Chicago, right?
No, it was in L.A. We actually did Fear Factor in the very hotel where he was shot, because the hotel eventually shut down. I don't know how long after the assassination, but when we were there, they would rent it out for television shows. It's just like weird place, man. You'd walk through the kitchen where he got shot. Like, he got shot in the kitchen, or they bring him into the kitchen?
Probably brought him in. I think it was in like the convention part where they were giving a speech.
Whoo!
Meeting hall or something.
And that guy swears that he didn't kill him, and but play that.
Okay.
Play that that Kennedy speech.
It's actually like a 20-minute speech. This is just, I think this is the main highlight.
Okay, that's good.
I am not asking your newspaper.
You get it.
Wow.
Crazy, right?
Yeah.
Now, if you had just heard that, if someone else was saying that instead of Kennedy, if someone else is saying those very things in front of you about how they have an open budget, their findings are all concealed, they're a tightly knit group that combines the military and science and all, you'd be like, what?
Yeah.
Are you on Sam Tripoli's podcast this week? Are you on Tinfoil Hat? What are you doing with this wacky thought?
What do you think
wouldn't think that would be the president. He's talking about secret society. He's talking about the military-industrial complex. He's talking about all the gears that are in play, all the pieces that are in play that are making money and causing war and deciding what information people should and shouldn't have and what overreach, they're going to put into action.
He's foreshadowing everything.
Episode number 1759. Oliver Stone breaks down the JFK cover-up, exposing evidence manipulation and government secrecy.
The community of people that are obsessed with the JFK assassination is pretty thorough. It's amazing.
There are a lot of nutcases, too, out there, but those serious people are really good, and they're the ones that kept this case alive.
Well, it's a thing that a conspiracy theorist really looks to.
I don't use that word. I think truth seeker is much more.
Okay, well, forget about that word, but someone who's interested in uncovering the truth about this assassination, the type of person that has that mindset that's interested in uncovering the truth about any historical event.
That's correct.
This is one of the best ones. Because there's
what a historian does.
Yes, there's significant evidence, and there's significant evidence that there is a conspiracy.
Significant evidence.
Significance. I mean,
I would say from the beginning there was, well, you have a shot from the rear and a shot from the front.
Yes, well, I was going to get into that. So when you detail so brilliantly in this documentary all of the people that were involved in manipulating evidence, whether it's autopsy photos, whether it's the evidence about the actual shots, where they were fired from, the impact, like where the exit wounds was, all these various people that were involved. How many people knew what had actually happened? Because it seems like there was a concentration of people that was not small. And one of the things that people who like to use the pejorative term conspiracy theorists, they always want to point to people can't keep a secret. Well, the fuck they can't. They had to.
It's a giant maze. It's so confusing.
Yes.
That no one would be believed if they could.
Right.
They're one part. Think of it as departments of this. Somebody pops up and says, I know this. So he disappears in the maze. It's another piece of information.
Yeah.
There's been no attempt by government to follow up on this at all. They had the HSCA in 1978, right? That came about because of pressure. And a lot of that was classified still and disappeared for a while. We got it out, all that stuff. They decided that there was a probable conspiracy based on the acoustic evidence of the motorcycles, but we don't want to go into that because that's a whole other story.
Acoustic evidence from sound
from the
rear,
the
recording?
and the front.
Yes.
Yes.
Well,
the shots.
The physical evidence of the impact on the body is
more important. Yeah.
Way more important and way more obvious.
Yeah.
That first of all, the establishment of the magic bullet was one of the most preposterous things that the United States public has ever accepted.
And I think we did a great service by driving a stake through that heart of that vampire because it's been around forever.
Well, you detailed in so many different ways, too. You detailed all the various ways that they had tried to establish it. Once they found the wound in the back, they tried to establish...
Well, don't confuse it. First of all, the magic bullet, there's no chain of custody on it. The FBI lied, and we proved it in the film.
Yes, you did.
Because the times don't match and when it was given. So the FBI down and out lied.
Mm-hmm.
Now, Hoover, of course, never wanted to believe that Oswald did it alone. He had to because they put themselves in a straitjacket. They said 3 shots. Mm-hmm. There were not 3 shots. It was probably 4 or 5 shots. 3 shots, one assassin who, why? What's his motive? He was a perfectly reasonable young man. He was in the corridor being yelled at, and he said, I need a lawyer. I'm a patsy.
Yes.
The guy didn't behave like he was proud of what he had done.
No.
Which is what they said. He was a communist, an assassin. They had this background of visiting Russia. Of course, we found out, the community found out that it wasn't everything what didn't meet the eye. It was a whole other story going on. That Oswald had been associated with the CIA.
Yes.
Not that he'd been an agent, but he'd been watched by the CIA for 4 years. That we know without a doubt now because of what we declassified. James Angleton, the counterterrorist chief, had a file on Oswald since before Russia. They knew him. They knew what he was doing up until the week. Well, apparently they disappeared his flash warning about a week before the assassination, which means to say you don't need to check Oswald if you're a Secret Service. You see him somewhere on a parade route. You'd have to clear out those type of people. The Secret Service is very aware of people who have backgrounds who could be dangerous. They took that off the signal on Oswald.
The other thing is that Oswald was working both sides. Clearly, that he was working with the pro-Castro and the anti-Cuba movement.
But the CIA set up both.
Yes,
the CIA set up the pro and the con.
Right. So it's very clear that they were well aware of him.
Dip him in the Cuban poison. Sheep dip him. Make him look like a commie who loves Castro. That was the intention, I believe. I believe that the CIA was so upset about these two near invasions of Cuba that this was a chance, by killing Kennedy, to get the United States to move against Castro. And this is where Johnson is not, you can't blame Johnson because he felt that there was this pressure right away. And he said to the Warren Commission guys, he says, look, there's a lot of pressure to point the finger at Russia and China, and Russia and Cuba. We don't want to do that because we're going to have a nuclear war if we do that. Like 40 million people are going to be dying. That's what he told Warren. Warren went white. In those days it was very serious. 40 million people, my God. He had all the weight of the country on his shoulders, and that's why he accepted this lousy job as the chief commissioner. So Johnson used that story, but Johnson believed it. I think he believed it. I think he believed in some way. I'm not sure. Let me put something, this is very important. Marvin Watson was his aide to Johnson. In 1970, Church Committee, he testified that Johnson, after he read the IG report that we talked about earlier, which said that there were no assassination. President Kennedy or Robert had never authorized any assassination attempt on Castro, right? He read that report, and he told Watson, according to Watson, he said, I now believe the CIA was probably involved in the assassination. That's what he said.
Wow.
In 1967, when he read the report.
Wow.
It comes out at the Church Committee, which is classified, disappears for some reason. We find it. We find it again because of this ARB.
So he was probably left in the dark as well.
I do believe so. I think he's definitely involved in the cover-up because he doesn't want to have a war.
Right.
But he changes the whole policy of Kennedy right away. We have that declassified call between him and Robert McNamara. What does Johnson say in that call? Do you remember? It's in the film. He says, I was never in agreement with you and the president about withdrawing from Vietnam. I thought you were wrong. He says that proudly because he's going in.
Right.
Why he wants to go into Vietnam and not Cuba, is another issue. But think about that. Just think about the implications of that. Johnson is moving towards war in Vietnam.
And how deep in that he was looking to do something to weaken the grip of the CIA. Not just get rid of those three guys, but he also wanted to diminish the CIA's influence and
but
power.
that wasn't his only thought. He had 100 things to deal with.
Right, that's the problem,
around
right?
The world.
And newly in office.
Well, by 60. He said statements about the generals. He said, they're not worth a bucket of piss or whatever it was. They're not. Generals think they know everything. They always want to go to war. They want the parades, but they don't want the casualties. They don't want the result. And that's true for the United States. We go to war with a lot of hoopla, and we come out and we leave our people we leave our people who go over there mostly in very difficult states, either suicide or in veterans hospitals with limbs blown off. It's not fun, war. And we treat it like, I think the United States has never experienced a war. I think that's a problem.
On our shores.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And when we do, we're shocked.
So we have a distorted perception of what war is.
I think the Russians are much more realistic because every Russian is related to somebody who was killed in World War II.
Right.
It's in their hearts. It's seared in. And I can't speak for the Chinese, but they lost like a couple of million men in Korea. So they must have been a lot of family pain there.
Have you ever tried to calculate how many people were involved in the cover-up of the assassination? Because when you break down all the various people that you document, everyone from Arlen Specter to everyone that's on the Warren Commission's report, it's very clear that those folks had to know that what they were doing was bullshit. From what you said about the FBI chain of custody for the magic bullet to the alteration of the autopsy photos and the difference between
the autopsy itself.
Yes, the autopsy itself. The difference between the Dallas autopsy and the way they looked at it at Bethesda, Maryland.
There was no autopsy in Dallas. It was just
the examination of the
It was very
body.
quick. The tracheotomy.
Yeah. The tracheotomy and also the description of the exit wound in his head.
Well, that comes out later.
Yeah.
Although some people didn't see it, but 40 people. What the ARB did, thank God, was collect all the people who saw the rear exit wound, and it was huge. We showed the film in the film. We showed the 40 people who saw it.
What's really crazy you document in the film was the fact that it wasn't really his brain. I
was going to go to that.
Please. The brain that they had used as a piece of evidence that this was Kennedy's brain had clearly been in formaldehyde for at least 2 weeks.
Yeah. Well, I'm so glad our documentary, and this is James D. Eugenio who wrote it. He's really the guy who reads everything, remembers everything through all these years, and there's 1 million documents. We drove a stake through the magic bullet. That's clear. There's no chain of custody. The FBI lied. They also, in the matter of the autopsy, the brain is intact. And it was photographed as such. It was a clean. The whole area was still there. Whereas it's impossible because the brain was seen. You see it spraying out in the car in the Zapruder film. You see it. The nurse Audrey Bell is talking about I can't remember the medical term, whatever it's called. It's spilling out on the floor of Parkland.
Yeah.
And when they weigh the brain, as they do in an autopsy, it comes out normal.
Well, not just normal, but extra large, right?
A little bit. Yeah.
Larger than average. It was like.
It's impossible. And what's more important is, and this drives a stake again through the heart of it, the photographer of the autopsy, John Stringer, the autopsy photographer. He's a straight guy. He's pro-Warren Commission, all that stuff. They bring him back. The ARB brings him back, and they show him the photos that we now have of that are in the National Archives, and he says, I never photographed that.
Right.
It was he took an up view of the brain. He never took a basilar view from below. He said, I never photographed that. And that's very important.
There's also some evidence that they had drawn hair in to cover up the exit wound.
Yes. I don't know about the evidence, but definitely the photograph shows that the hair had been pulled in. The shot is bizarre. It's bizarre shots. But so the autopsy is off. The brain is off. Photos are off. Then you go, the Garrison trial revealed that one of the autopsists, Peter Fink, saying that they were not in charge of the autopsy. The military was.
Right.
They wouldn't let him put his finger in the back hole.
Right.
They told them what to do. And they were very bullying. In fact, can you imagine doing an autopsy on the president and having 20 or 30 people looking at you from a gallery?
And they were telling him what he was able to do and not able to do. So the autopsy was being directed.
Yeah, I showed that in the movie. Don't touch that.
Right.
Don't do that.
Which is so you have to think that.
Plus, they have the best autopsy people in the world, civilian, all around Washington. Why wouldn't they call them in? No.
Right.
There's no desire to.
So they had a predetermined ending that they wanted to achieve. Or a result that they wanted to achieve.
Three bullets, one assassin.
But this is what's crazy is you've got to think, okay, when then you have at least those 30 people that are in the audience watching that autopsy. What do they know?
I don't know that.
But isn't that crazy? If all 30 of them know that Lee Harvey Oswald didn't act alone.
No, we don't know that.
We don't know.
No,
right.
I mean, we don't know some of them.
But there's obviously a directive.
Well, there again, we don't know.
I shouldn't say obviously directed, but they're doing something to influence the way this autopsy is being done. At least some of the people are giving direction, giving instruction, and you got to wonder, why would they do that? Like, what motivation would they have unless they knew that there was a predetermined result that they need to achieve?
Well, you have, of course, the Johnson fear that it would become a hysteria. Russia or Cuba being accused of killing him, and it would be a situation that they could no longer control. That's a legitimate excuse to cover up.
Mm-hmm.
One interesting story, it's in the 4-hour version, not in this 2-hour version. That's coming out in the end of February. We show a moment in the autopsy where one of the technicians, the doctor looks up, he says, there's cigar smoke blurring this thing. It was just cigar smoke smells, covers up the air and stuff. It looks, you don't smoke a cigar in an autopsy.
In an autopsy, crazy.
He says, who's doing that? Find out. Tell him to put it out. He goes over to the gallery, and guess who's smoking the fucking cigar?
Who?
General Curtis LeMay, the figure from Strangelove that Kubrick was satirizing.
That's hilarious.
And he says, can you put it out? LeMay simply looks at him, blows smoke in his face. And the guy he was a technician. He just he's telling the truth. Walks back, couldn't get him to put the cigar out.
Wow.
That's pretty interesting.
Episode number 1222. Joe Rogan and Michael Shermer break down the JFK assassination, debating Oswald's role, the magic bullet, and why conspiracy theories persist.
The other aspect with conspiracy theories is cognitive dissonance. That is, we want the size of the event to be matched by a cause that's equally of that size. So the analogy I use is, the Holocaust, the worst genocide in human history caused by the Nazis, the worst political regime in human history. There's a match there.
Right.
But if you say something like, JFK, the leader of the free world, brought down by who? Lee Harvey Oswald, just some nobody? There's this mismatch. Or 9/11, this huge thing by 19 guys with box cutters.
Do you think that Lee Harvey Oswald acted alone?
Yeah.
Do you really?
Sure. Yeah,
what makes you
absolutely.
think that?
All of the evidence, and none of the evidence against anybody else, and all of the evidence against particularly him. Gerald Posner's book, Case Closed, and then the attorney, what's his name? That was the Manson attorney.
I forget his name.
He has a massive book where he lines up every single one of the arguments by the JFK conspiracy. For example, conspiracists make a big deal about how Oswald got a job at the book depository building, which just happened to be where the parade route was going, so he could have a clear shot. So it was Posner that tracked down when the White House determined, even when Kennedy was going to Dallas, let alone what the parade route would be, and Oswald already had the job there. That's just chance. So
he knew in advance, bro.
That's right. He knew the future.
Do you think it's possible that Oswald was in cahoots?
No.
Why do you think that? What about the magic bullet theory?
Well, that's been settled by the fact that the way it's showed in the videos is that the two seats are like this, and that the bullet has to do this. Well, in fact, the seats were like that, and that Connolly was
Well, you're
down
explaining
here
this in audio form. Just when you're saying
so
it's like stadium seating.
Right.
One's elevated above the other one.
That's right.
Yes.
So the bullet actually does, when it passes through the neck, through Kennedy's neck, and then hits Connolly's shoulder, it is already moving down.
I think it hit his wrist. It fractured his wrist.
Right. This has been tested and tested and tested.
Well, sort of. Here's my issue with it. There's a couple issues. One, on the pro side, the idea that bullets will take a straight path is ridiculous. I've talked to hunters that have shot animals in the front and had a bullet come out the same side they shot it. It ricocheted off bones and came out like the front of the animal.
Wow.
Like bullets take weird paths when they hit things in particular. So do arrows. They take, as a person who's well versed in firearms and shot animals and hunted, sometimes a bullet goes straight through, and sometimes it hits bones and wacky things happen. Things deflect. But on the negative side, they always distort. Bullets always distort, particularly when they hit bone. What bothered me was that they found that bullet in Connolly's gurney, when they brought him to the hospital. They just conveniently found this bullet. Aha, we have it. This is the bullet. It matches the same rifle.
Yeah.
But
it wasn't pristine. It was flattened.
Barely. If you look at that bullet is nothing like a bullet that's hit bone. When bullets hit bone, they mushroom, they balloon, they bend, they distort wildly. They don't come out looking like that. They come out looking like that when you shoot them into water or when you shoot them into like feathers. They don't come out looking like that under normal circumstances when they shatter the bone of two different people.
Well, do you know that for sure?
No, I do not know that for sure. But one thing I do know a lot about is I know quite a bit about what bullets look like when they hit things. I've looked into this pretty extensively, and I've talked to a lot of people in law enforcement, military, hunters, and none of them believe that bullet hit bones, shattered bones, and came out looking like that. Is it possible that bullet was the only bullet ever in the history of the world that did do that? Yeah. It might be.
Okay, so we're getting kind of caught up in the weeds of the anomalies. What about this?
Just the bullet.
Oswald himself had attempted to assassinate a general named Walker 6 months before with his rifle and a handgun, and he went over to the house. He took a shot through the guy's when he saw him at the desk, took a shot, missed him. He told his wife about it. I'm a revolutionary. I'm trying to start something here.
Don't get me wrong. I'm not saying that Oswald was innocent. I'm not. I mean, and I think it's very possible that Oswald did shoot at the president. He might have even hit the president. It's also very possibly that some other people were involved as well.
Who?
I don't know.
See, this is the problem.
But wait a minute. Why is it a problem? If you don't know who they are, just because you don't know who they are doesn't mean they didn't exist.
Okay, but why do we need to postulate extra people?
Because of all the gunshots that happened in a short amount of time. The fact that the reason why they came up with the theory of the magic bullet in the first place, because they had to account for a bullet that hit a curb underneath the overpass. Do you know that, right?
Yeah. Well, okay. There's okay. If
do you know why they came out with them? Yeah, I've been there. Do you know why they came up with?
But it's short. I mean, it's right there. You can hardly miss.
That's not the point. The point. Well, it's not. That's sort of true. Yeah, it's not a far shot.
And he was a pretty good marksman. Posner tracked down his.
But we're not talking about that. We're talking about the reason why they came up with the magic bullet theory in the first place. Do you know why?
Well, I thought it was because of the alignment of the seats.
No, because they had to attribute 3 shots. They had to figure out, one of them, they were thinking, well, all these wounds came from 3 bullets. But then they found a bullet that had hit the curb on the underside. And the guy checked into a hospital because he was hit with a ricochet.
All right.
So there's a curb that they proved was hit with a bullet. There was a bullet hole in the granite or whatever the fuck the curb's made out of. It hit this guy. He went to the hospital. So he was hit with a ricochet. So they knew that one bullet had not hit the president, and so they had to attribute all of these wounds to one bullet now. They had one bullet that landed into his neck, another bullet that hit him in the head.
Right.
And so how did these 3 bullets cause a wound on Connolly as well? Then they came up with there's the bullet. Look at that bullet,
but you have to look at the end. It's flattened if you look at it from the end.
No, it's not. Look at this. Under no circumstances do I feel that this bullet could hit a wrist and still not be deformed. We proved that by experiments as a chief consultant in wound ballistics for the U.S. Army who supervised tests for the Warren Commission. Here's the thing. I don't necessarily think that there was some grand conspiracy, but I do think it's entirely possible that someone posthumously took that rifle and wanted to pin it on Lee Harvey Oswald definitively. Look, there's people that do things when they know someone's guilty and they plant evidence. Mark Furman did that with O.J. Simpson. They found his glove and they planted evidence. And there was one of the reasons why O.J. got off, because there was some sort of conspiring to make it look like he was, it was the evidence was a clear path. Mm-hmm. They could have just taken that rifle and, look, could have been that Oswald did it alone. It's possible, but it also could have been that some other people were shooting at him too. It could have been that they had decided to have Oswald be a part of this. And when Jack Ruby ran in and shot him, that doesn't look a little suspicious? That some guy with ties to the mob gets right up to this guy who just shot the president and shoots him? Like, why? He's never shot anybody before. Do it publicly?
Posner talks about Ruby's character and who he was, major Kennedy supporter. Running with some bad dudes, some bad hombres there in Texas, and he was a gun owner. Security wasn't anything like it is now. He really could just walk right in, like he did.
It's possible, but it's also possible that guy owed something to the mob, and this is what they told him to do. You're going to get rid of that guy. No one's going to care. They're going to be happy. Fuck that guy. He just shot the president. Who knows? It seems like people want it to be one way or the other. and they want this case closed.
It doesn't have to be
option.
that way. I mean, Lincoln was assassinated by a conspiracy, and that was evident pretty quickly afterwards.
Right.
And they rounded him up. World War I was launched by a conspiracy with the assassination of Franz Ferdinand by a Serbian group of called the Black Hand, a group of nationalists.
Well, we already
wanting
talked about the Vietnam War too, the Gulf of Tonkin incident. That's
right.
a false flag.
So these things do happen. They're all false flags. There are conspiracies to assassinate foreign leaders. Hitch wrote this book on Kissinger as a war criminal. That all the shenanigans we were doing in South America with dictators there, we're backing this dictator because he's a son of a bitch, but he's our son of a bitch versus this guy, and we're gonna assassinate Castro. All the stuff that came out that Johnson tried to cover up, that came out in the Pentagon Papers about Kennedy plotting to have Castro assassinated. That's a kind of conspiracy. So this does happen. The question is, did it happen in that particular case or this one or here? And the evidence, in my opinion, after reading particularly Gerald Posner's book, Case Closed, there's a funny internet meme that went around last week of a guy that dies, goes to heaven, and God says, you've been such a good fellow your whole life. I'll grant you one which you can ask me anything. He said, all right, who killed Kennedy? And God said, it was Lee Harvey Oswald acting alone using his own Carcano rifle. And the guy goes, this goes higher up than I thought.
That's funny, man. Did you ever read David Lifton's novel or book about it, rather?
Yeah.
Best Evidence?
Best Evidence. I didn't read the whole book. When I was researching this back in the 90s, after the Oliver Stone film came out. Because after that, when that came out, I thought, man, if only half of this or 10% of this is true, it's definitely a conspiracy. But then there are websites dedicated to everything he got wrong there.
Well, he made people up. Like the general,
right.
Donald Sutherland character, that guy doesn't even exist.
No.
He just used him as a theatrical tool.
Yeah, a very distorting film. But film is such a powerful medium that it's hard to overcome that.
Well, that movie in particular, I mean, you got Kevin Costner, who's the good guy.
Everybody's in that.
Loves I mean, that is a
Jack Lemmon, Walter Matthau.
Mm-hmm. It's a crazy movie. And it really has you believing that there's some sort of a conspiracy.
Back into the left.
People, well, here's the thing about that, though. Well, I've looked at that over and over again. Yes, it is back into the left, but the spray kind of comes out at the front.
Yeah, it does,
Yeah, it kind of comes out the front. And one thing that does happen when people or things get shot is you have nerves. And nerves react, and things do weird, weird results in your body if you get hit by something. It doesn't. I mean, if you
like
get
the
hit in the
one
chest,
his hands come up like that.
Well, he's grabbing his neck apparently. That was the other thing. There was a difference in the autopsy results from Bethesda, Maryland, versus in Dallas, Texas. Dallas, Texas, they attributed the throat wound to a frontal shot, that something hit him in the front. And then the Bethesda, Maryland, they said that it was a trach wound. They opened him up to clear his breathing pathway. And then 75.
Right.
So all those years later, and then people got a chance to see the footage, and they were like, wow, this is not how it was described to us at all. And it made people skeptical.
There's a good Nova show on ballistics in the head and testing the rifle, and could you shoot that many times in that many seconds and so on. And it's to me, it's pretty convincing.
The problem with me is I know too much about what happens when bullets hit bones. I don't buy that was the bullet. I do. Look, I think they could have just dropped that bullet off. Doesn't mean that Lee Harvey Oswald didn't do it. The thing about that bullet, though, is there might be some fuckery involved. And the David Lifton book was the book that got me into conspiracies. That fucking book, God damn it. If I could go back and not read it, I bombed on stage because of that book.
You did?
Yeah, well, it's my fault, but I read that book the day I was performing, and I was freaking out because I was like 24 or something like that. Get your head together. You can't just say the jokes and not have some emotional attachment to them. But that book highlights what it was Lifton was a bookkeeper or an accountant, I believe, and he was hired to do something with the Warren Commission report, and because he found some contradictions in it, he went over the entire Warren Commission report, which is an enormous publication, and he found all of these problems in the Warren Commission report, and all these contradictions, and it was his determination after reading everything and writing his book. He thought that the conclusion they made before the fact, and that they wrote all this stuff to sort of to back up their conclusion, that it wasn't based entirely on an objective version of the facts and of the event itself. And his take was there was a conspiracy.
Well, it's launched a mini industry of books and films.
It has, man. Think about all the money that's been made off of the Kennedy assassination.
You could go down the rabbit hole with this stuff.
Did you ever see
endlessly.
the Jesse Ventura version of it? He believes everything's conspiracy.
Every conspiracy.
He's the best.
Yeah.
He's the best.
I was on his conspiracy show.
Were you?
Yeah, he's out there.
Oh, yeah, he believes it. Yeah, he was like, no one could have made that shot. They definitely could have made that shot. It's a rifle. It's not that far. No. And just because someone gets lucky doesn't mean they can't get lucky. Like, people get lucky all the time. People flip a coin and it lands on heads a mile away. I mean, you could throw a coin. You could throw a coin out of a helicopter, and you could say, this is going to be heads when it lands. And, and it can be heads. You can get lucky. Right. It really is possible.
Well, this assassination of Franz Ferdinand that triggered the First World War, they messed up. I mean, they had like 7 of them, and they met in secret, and they got their weapons that morning, and so on. And a couple of them chickened out. Somebody else got lost. There's like 3 of them there. Somebody threw a hand grenade, missed, rolled into the
100 yards or 200 yards, whatever, however far the distance is to the target. You squeeze, boom, the trigger goes off, and you see that the bullet is low and to the left by a couple inches. You make an adjustment on the scope. If you drop that rifle, that scope gets knocked, the adjustment's out the window.
Right.
So the idea that there's like a perfect chain of command between Lee Harvey Oswald pulling that trigger and that scope never got rattled at all. No, but the conspiracy theorists want you to think there's no way he could have made that shot. That scope wasn't even lined up good. How the fuck do you know? How do you know? You don't know. Like, anybody who knows anything about rifles knows there's no way you could know. Because if all you'd have to do is whack it. Here, I'm going to bring you the rifle and just bump it with your elbow funny. Knock it into a wall when you're handing it to someone, and that scope's going to be off.
Right.
So then you take it to a range. We're going to prove definitively that he could have never made this shot because this scope is off.
Right.
Boom. Look, it's 6 inches to the left.
Right.
Wow, case closed.
Right.
No, it's there's no way people know whether or not that scope was on when he was pulling that trigger. There's no way you know.
When I went to Dealey Plaza, it's so big in our public imagination.
It's not.
It's not. You go there, it's like, this is it? It's tiny.
It's so small.
And then you go up to the museum, and you're on the 6th floor the book depository, and you look down, and they have an X, the 2 X's in the street. And you think, that's just right there.
Dude, I could shoot that with an arrow.
I bet you could.
I can.
Yeah.
I guarantee you, if you give me some time, if you put a target right where that thing was, right where that Lincoln was, and you put me in that window, I guarantee I hit that target with a bow.
Right.
Like the idea that you couldn't, and I'm holding it, no rest.
Right.
The idea that you couldn't do that with a rifle,
right?
You certainly could. Lee Harvey Oswald certainly could have done it. He certainly could have shot at Kennedy. He was a crazy fuck. Lee Harvey Oswald was involved in a lot of shady shit. It wasn't like he was just some dentist somewhere. It was
and
like
he scored the second, according to Posner, he scored the second highest marksmanship.
There it is, right there.
Here to here, right?
Yeah.
Dude, that's so small. That is such a short distance.
Then the other question I had, when you're coming up Houston Street and going left, I always wondered why he didn't shoot him there when the car's coming right at him.
Well, he was in the other window. He was in the window on the left-hand side. He was over there.
No. It's
It's over here?
Yeah, it's right there.
That's where he shot him, from that window there?
Yeah. So I always wondered why he didn't shoot him when the car was coming right at him, because that would have been a cleaner shot, it seems to me.
Head on, you mean?
Yeah.
Yeah. Maybe you want to shoot him in the back of the head.
Does it have like a sniper?
Maybe panic.
It's that upper right, yeah. It's the
look
upper
at that.
right one, yeah.
3D.
Nice. Wow.
Yeah, when we drove through it, not last time I was in Dallas, a couple times ago, but when we drove through it, it's like, it's eerie. You're like, wow.
Yeah.
It all happened right here.
I've been twice there, and there's always conspiracy people walking around. They're looking for a tip, so I gave this guy $10 to go, all right, give me the whole story. And he was very entertaining. Okay, here's the grassy knoll, the pickety fence.
Yeah.
And he had another one about this man. He took the manhole cover off. He goes, there was somebody down here in the manhole. Oh. Popped up, bam, shot him, went back down in the manhole.
My favorite dumb conspiracy is they believe that the driver turned around and shot Kennedy.
Right.
That's the best one.
Right, yeah.
Those are the spaces fake people. You're always going to get a bunch of really wacky conspiracies whenever anything happens in the news.
Episode number 1551, Joe Rogan and Oliver Stone break down JFK's assassination and the magic bullet.
There's a thing about your films, though, that I think, like, I keep getting back to this, but because you did go over there, it's almost like in your films, like, you have likely but possible. I mean, it can be done. The shot can be done, but that's one of the least ridiculous things about that story is whether or not one person could have pulled off those shots.
I don't think it'd be done. I think the world's best marksman couldn't do it. I remember reading something about that.
It's a
hard shot.
It's a hard shot, but hard shots can be made. Hard shots can be made.
3 shots in that time period?
Depending upon how much he trained for it, depending on, I mean, I've known some people that are spectacular marksmen that can do some ridiculous shit and do it so fastly.
He wasn't.
He wasn't. But he was also trained. And if he, depending upon how much...
getting a little sued because they're all dead. But I think that Alan Dulles has to be looked at a lot closer. And I think he was no longer in the CIA, but he had a tremendous amount of influence. And I think he needed some very organized top people to help him. Certain people in the Pentagon, too, because there was an awful lot of strange...
Relax afterwards.
Episode 1052. Joe Rogan debates Mick West on JFK's magic bullet and lone shooter claims.
So let's find one that we disagree on. I think you believe the official story of the JFK assassination. They had to account for one bullet that hit the underpass, ricocheted off, and put some man in the hospital. That one. But no, see what I'm saying? Even that one is not unbelievable. It is believable to me because I know that bullets do strange things when they hit things.
Right, but you got to combine that with the fact that the bullet came out fairly pristine, which means it didn't actually go through a kind of a bouncy path like that.
Right.
It went through a straight path. This diagram is from... a
conspiracy theorist book.
Essentially.
Yes. But there are
other diagrams that will show the actual path with him. Like, they've got the butts there on the same level, and you know that Kennedy was actually sitting above.
He was elevated,
Connolly.
yes. So see if we can find one that has the actual seating arrangement or more accurate seating. The one right there with the red line in the right-hand side, the one on the right-hand side, that's a more accurate...
from above, yeah.
Yeah, from above.
Yeah.
There's also the fact that there was particles. There was more metallic particles from the bullets, more fragments from the bullet. I believe that was the bullet, and I think that is a very reasonable assumption.
Well, you know what you should do? You should get one of those guns, get the same bullets, get some ballistic dummies with some bones inside, and start shooting.
They've already done that.
Yeah.
Penn and Teller did that.
Yeah, but some people have done it, and they have found pretty close to what actually happened.
No, they didn't.
Within the round.
No. Every bullet that hit bone got distorted. That's just what happens. When you shoot those bullets...
Conspiracy very much. And the reason I don't is that there are already, I think literally over 1,000 books on JFK.
I've read a few. I got into Case Closed. That was Vincent Bugliosi's book. Is that who it was? But I was like, this guy's got an agenda. It just didn't... There's many books that you could read about the Kennedy assassination, and some of them favor the conspiracy, and some of them favor the assassination. I think a lot of them have merit on both sides. Mm-hmm. One thing that drives me crazy was people say that you could never make that shot. That's fucking bullshit. That's bullshit. This is why I know it's bullshit, because it was only like a couple hundred yards. Yeah. Like a couple hundred yards, shooting at something the size of a person's head is easy.
What about Jesse Ventura trying to do the three shots, getting 3 shots off?
He didn't know what he was doing. Look, I mean, first of all, if you were used to that rifle and you practice that, someone said, "Oh, the scope was off." I think that's bullshit too. The reason why it's just dropping it. So the idea that he could have never made that shot because the scope was off. Scopes get adjusted. That's what happens when you drop a scope. They move. That's a whole thing about ballistics. You have to check them. You go to the range. You set up a lead sled. You lay the rifle down so it's perfectly stable. You squeeze off a shot. You use the binoculars. You find out where the shot hit on the target, and then you adjust the scope. They're adjustable. So the idea that his scope was no good is crazy. The idea that shot was too far to make, insane. It was I think it was less than 100 yards when they think he made the first shot, which is a chip shot. Mm-hmm. That's a shot that you would make without even a rest. Now he's making this shot resting on the window, so he's perfectly steady. The idea that that was impossible is crazy. The idea that no one can do that in 3 shots, that's been disproven. Someone can do it. Someone who's really good at reloading and loading can do it. Just because Jesse Ventura couldn't do it, but Jesse's super conspiracy-minded.
Yes.
Like, he goes all in with the conspiracy theories.
That's the motivated reasoning part of things.
Yeah.
I don't know if he's doing it just for his show or because he really believes it.
I worked with the same people that did his show. The reason why I did Joe Rogan Questions Everything is they wanted me to reinforcing things I've already said. If I find out that what I said was wrong, I'm interested in repeating that I was wrong as many times as I can to get it out to as many people as I can.
Yeah, I'm with you.
Because I think it's important.
Yeah.
So this JFK thing, there's bullshit on both sides of it. But the idea that this guy who went over to Russia, married a Russian citizen, came back here, he was absolutely involved in some shady, weird shit.
The people who were like helping him or motivating him or giving him instructions even.
Thrown around right around the time that Kennedy got assassinated. Wow. And it was directly because there were so many people that had all these theories. There was all these stories about the shots from the grassy knoll. Mm-hmm. And until Dick Gregory went on the Geraldo Rivera show, which I think was 11 years later. What year was it that Dick Gregory went on Geraldo Rivera and showed the Zapruder footage?
Says this was they used
many years later, like at least 8 years later.
Right.
What
after the assassination?
It says that
what
they used
the Zapruder film came late,
they used
right?
it before that. Yeah,
but it was a different assassination attempt.
Oh, it was another assassination
Garfield.
attempt. Garfield.
Oh,
Interesting.
Are we talking
in 1881? Interesting.
Listed on a piece of paper.
Conspiracy theorist.
Interesting.
Wait, when did the Zapruder film come out?
So they had the Zapruder film. I think his name was Abraham Zapruder. He was at the scene, and he was filming the president as he was driving down. And as he was driving down, he caught the shots. He caught the shot to the neck, and he sees Kennedy holding his neck, and then he sees the head go back and to the left. So 1975. Okay, think about that. The assassination was 63. So
yeah,
75.
What was in
Crazy.
63? What was in 63?
63, Kennedy was assassinated.
That's what I'm saying.
Yes.
Yeah, there's this
but
was
the
Why did
Zapruder
it take
film
that
was
long?
released by Dick Gregory, who is a stand-up comedian.
Wow.
Dick Gregory brought it to the Geraldo Rivera show with this other gentleman, and then they played it for America. And the whole country got to see Kennedy's head go back into the left and this spray of blood. And everybody's like, wait,
This was-
what happened?
Right?
What happened?
Did they ever say why it took so long?
Because it's fake. No.
Because it
Well,
was owned.
something's going on.
No. It was owned by Life. So I believe what happened was Zapruder sold it to Life. Life had it, and they wouldn't release it. So they thought it was too disturbing, or
Maybe they were told not to.
We also
time.
have to remember that back then there was no VCRs.
Yeah,
There's, it's very hard to watch something like
Right.
this. You'd have to have one of those reel-to-reel cameras that you could set up and watch. I mean, nobody watched films
Yeah.
at home.
Right.
You watched what was on television
Right.
back then. So
Interesting.
when they played that, this was monumental. This is not something, and then you had to be there to see it. You couldn't just pause it. You couldn't rewind it. There was none of that. There was
Right? No DVR.
and you couldn't tell your friends on social media. You had to go to work the next day and go, did you see that
Right.
Geraldo Rivera show? Which is, by the way, I think it was on late at night too.
I think it actually says good morning or good night. Hold on.
I think it's a
that what-
Good night,
late.
America. Yeah, good night.
I think it was a late night show. And
Is that what blew Geraldo up?
No,
Or he was already
Geraldo
big?
was already doing well. He was already an established journalist, which is why he was the host of that show.
Mm-hmm.
And I think it was late at night, so fucking nobody was watching.
Right.
A small amount of people were watching. And then they play this, they see it once, they go, "What the fuck did I just see?" And then it takes forever for books to come out,
Sure.
and now you got
Strange.
Tucker Carlson on Fox News saying the CIA killed Kennedy, and you're like, "What did he just say?
Yeah.
What?
Yeah.
Did he just say that on TV? Like what?"
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, imagine how long it took for somebody to find out who the president was before the telegraph type
Oh
thing.
yeah.
2 years and now imagine those elections.
Oh my God. Right.
The checks and balances.
right.
Right?
Right. When Washington. Imagine if we
Makes
found
you
out that
wonder.
Washington stole the election.
Right? It's funny, right?
A few votes here and there.
It is funny. What if we found out Lincoln was a total
Thomas
fraud?
Jefferson, right?
Right? They all stole the election. Like, what?
Man,
Had people assassinated that voted
my
incorrectly.
gosh.
it's
Yeah.
amazing.
But Lincoln ran and lost like 5 times or something, right? Before
did he
he
really?
won. I don't remember if it was for president or when he ran for a different office, but
Back then, they would stand in front of the whole town, like on a literal soapbox, and talk for hours.
yeah,
Hours and hours in front
Yeah.
of everybody.
Yeah.
Explaining what they were going to do.
yeah, amazing.
So you gotta imagine that when this Zapruder film came out, that was a moment where, like, you got to also realize this is like during the time of the Vietnam War. So
Right.
there's already massive distrust in government. And people are like, well, what happened exactly? And then the books start coming out. Books start
Yeah.
coming out like Best Evidence by David Lifton.
12 years later.
Yeah,
12
later.
years and nobody, but the CIA saw it.
I'm sure.
Yeah.
It wasn't. They were there. It wasn't until Dick Gregory, a stand-up comedian, brings it to the Geraldo Rivera show.
Yeah,
Incredible.
yeah.
That's amazing.
Yeah,
right?
it's
I thought it was
incredible.
2 years. It came out 2 years late, but wow, 12 years.
12 years.
You know?
Yeah, so 75. So, just imagine something that happened 12 years ago for us. Like, what? 2011? Which, by the way, that sounds crazy.
It does. That's great.
2011
That is
was
crazy.
12 years ago.
I know.
Like, what the fuck is
That is
happening? Time is
insane.
flying.
Too
Man,
fast. And
it
what
is.
what a world we live in now, where even if the government tried to withhold information or tries to, as they do, with social media and all these different platforms, it's very, very hard. It's
Yeah.
very, very hard. So they try to push a narrative, and then different people have questions, and it creates this environment where if the truth is not being told, people can pick up on it.
Yeah.
In episode number 1888, Rogan and Michael Shermer clash over the lone gunman theory in the JFK case.
I'm convinced Lee Harvey Oswald acted alone. I'm not a
Really?
Yes, I am.
What
yeah.
makes you convinced of that?
Well, to have a whole chapter like there was something up was that President Johnson was worried that if it looks like there's a conspiracy afoot with the Cubans or the Russians, that could lead to a nuclear exchange. So we don't want the American people to think.
Back and forth on that at all? Or is it just something you've always believed?
No, before the Oliver Stone film, I hadn't really given it that much thought. I thought, well, the Warren report seems pretty thorough, but who knows? What do I know? And then the Oliver Stone film, which floats every conspiracy theory there was in one package, and I thought, well, if 10% of this is true, seems like there was something else going on. But then there were web pages posted of like, here are all the mistakes in the film, and here are all the counter arguments. And then I read Gerald Posner's book, Case Closed, about the life of Lee Harvey Oswald and why all the evidence point reclaiming history, which is like 1,500 pages long, and it dissects every one of the hundreds of conspiracy theories. There are something on the order of 140 people have been accused, and a couple hundred organizations have been affiliated with the JFK assassination. The problem is that there's no convergence of evidence to any other one than Lee Harvey Oswald acting alone. And all the evidence points to him. So it's not impossible.
All the evidence points to him.
Massive amounts of evidence, right. And so now we're supposed to get a new
Why do you think
tranche of documents.
But they're not. They won't release them. They keep stopping the release of these documents.
This worries me because that makes people suspicious, as it should. And so,
but wait a minute. It worries you because it makes people suspicious, or it worries you because it points to their withholding information because that information looks bad?
I would love to see the information, and I would change my mind in a heartbeat.
What are your thoughts on the magic bullet?
Okay, the magic bullet is not a magic bullet. It's a single bullet theory. That is, what it's usually rendered as is Kennedy and Connolly are sitting like this, back.
Oh, I'm aware of all of
it.
it.
Yeah, right. So the bullet doesn't have to go left, right, and so forth.
Kennedy was elevated.
Yes, right.
Yeah.
So if you draw a line straight back to the 6th floor window of the book depository building, the bullet goes straight through his back, out his neck, into Connolly, through his arm, into his leg, and so forth, in a straight line.
Well, the only reason why they had to come up with the theory that one bullet did all that damage. You know that, right?
Well,
do you know why?
Well, I don't know. Go ahead.
Because someone was hit by a ricochet in the underpass. And so they had to attribute all that damage to one bullet.
Right, that's right, yeah.
But there's more in Connolly's body. There was more pieces of bullet than were missing from the actual bullet itself. Mm-hmm. Did you ever look at the actual bullet itself? Have you studied it?
Yeah, I have a picture of it in there.
Yeah,
You know,
I know a lot about bullets.
Yeah,
and one of the problems about bullets is there's never been a bullet that's gone through bone and shattered bone and gone through two different bodies and came out looking like that.
Well,
that looks like a bullet that was shot into water.
It is deformed, though.
It's slightly deformed, but every bullet that leaves a gun is slightly deformed. That indicates even more so that it didn't hit anything. When bullets hit things, they deform. That's the whole purpose of making bullets like that. These bullets are designed to shatter things and expand upon impact, and it creates more damage.
Well, hollow point bullets are.
Sure, but all bullets are.
Yeah.
Hollow points even more specifically, but all bullets are designed to expand upon impact.
Right.
Even rifle bullets that are copper, because in California you can't use lead bullets anymore because condors and a lot of other birds of prey, they eat the lead bullets and they get lead poisoning because like if there's an animal that gets shot and the hunter doesn't recover it and then the condor or something else eats that, some sort of a raptor eats that, then they get lead poisoning. But bullets expand and they break up. They don't look like that. That bullet was found in Connolly's gurney, which is like so ridiculous. The idea that, oh, look, we found the bullet here. It just managed to magically fall out of his body and look pristine.
Okay, 80% of the ear witnesses heard 3 shots.
Yeah, but
and
witnesses.
The first shot missed.
But witnesses.
Well, yeah, but okay. So
that's just asking people what happened. If you talk to witnesses after 9/11, they said they heard explosions.
Yes, right. Yeah, right. Exactly. So again, it's a probability argument. It's not black or white.
But the probability of that having gone through bodies is very low.
Well, I don't know
Almost
if
zero.
you've seen those tests where they shoot the bullet through the foam stuff that mimics a human body and so forth, and
but that's
it does
gel.
get deformed like that.
That's ballistic gel.
Yeah.
Ballistic gel is not bone.
But they have shot it through pigs with the bone and tendons and ligaments
Doesn't
and
look
muscles
like
and all
that.
that.
Never looks like that.
Well, anyway, there's good shows on this.
No. It never looks like that. There's no evidence of bullets hitting bone where they come out looking like that.
I don't know, Joe. Are you sure? Because I'm pretty sure it was it was either Nova or National Geographic that did this and replicated it, shot it right through a body.
Who knows? I think there was a lot of people that John F. Kennedy upset.
Episode number 1001, Joe Rogan explores Oswald's motives, the magic bullet theory, and long-standing CIA suspicions.
So speaking of Citizen Kane and Orson Welles and conspiracies, last night I rewatched the episode of Geraldo Rivera's Good Night America when they introduced the Zapruder, because Dick Gregory just died. They introduced this Zapruder film to the American public 13 years or 12 years after Kennedy's assassination. And then I went and read that paper, the articles that was printed a couple of weeks ago that you even tweeted about it, about the CIA questioning the official story of the JFK assassination.
Yeah, that was interesting, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Zapruder
as
film,
a CIA guy, what do you think about that?
Well, first of all, that Zapruder film, that's the most watched piece of film in history of film.
Is it really?
Which is really interesting. But it was interesting that as typical with a lot of these things, the headline doesn't necessarily actually match once you get into the body of the story. But the idea being that the agency had some concerns over the idea that perhaps Cuba was behind the assassination, or the Russians to some degree, or working more likely in a combination of the two. Look, I think, do I think that he could have taken that shot? Yeah. It was not. It was not. I've been up in that book depository from that vantage point. We did a story on the whole issue, the conspiracy theory, and what could have happened. And we tried to find some new witnesses. And could he have made that shot? Yeah, it was a straightforward effort for someone who had some training. He was he wasn't the world's best shot, but he had sufficient training to make that shot. Now that's separate from his motivations and any potential support that he may have gotten during the course of that. And I think that he, in his mind, he He genuinely felt that this was going to get him into the revolution, right? That this was going to, he had had a very unhappy experience in Russia when he was over there living, came back, saw what was happening in Cuba, desperately wanted to be part of that, took an unexplained trip down to Mexico, which could well have been in an effort to find somebody who could support his desire to take some sort of action, whether he had formed in his mind that's what he was going to do at the time or not. So, is there still a possibility that the Cubans, which the Intel service there, would have had the file on him? I mean, he was a very, very well-known quantity, obviously, by that time for the Russians. The Russians were solely responsible for training up the Cuban Intel service. So there's a massive file on him, and they knew, who they were dealing with. They knew his weaknesses. They knew his motivations. They knew what to do in terms of trying to get leverageable, information on him. So I think that the jury's still out. I'm not a conspiracy guy, but I think there's enough there that says, yes, it's kind of like what we're talking about with climate change. I believe this, but this also could be true. So
right.
I think he could have taken that shot for sure, and succeeded. I think it's also possible that he may have had the encouragement of, in particular, the Cuban Intel Service through the Russians. Because at that time, in particular, they didn't do anything. The Cubans didn't do anything without the Russians' support, blessings, and direction. So that is entirely possible. Do I think that there were a variety of other things at play? Did they help him get the weapon? Was there actual logistical support in there? I don't.
Who knows?
I don't think so, but maybe. Yeah, it's a fascinating thing, and again, nobody wants to think that something that impactful could have been just one guy who had a dream about being a hero of the revolution. Right? They just it's such an awful thing to think about. You want something bigger. You want something more behind it. And it's I will say the one thing that I think there was something else to was the MLK issue of Martin Luther King assassination.
Well, let's get to that for sure. But here's the thing about the Lee Harvey Oswald assassination. A lot of people think that there was people in the grassy knoll and that they shot at the president and there was more than one shooter. Mm-hmm. That's possible too. And here's the other problem with people saying that Oswald could have never made that shot. Of course he could have. 100% he could have. Is it likely? Listen, people throw three-point shots that have no fucking business on a basketball court and they hit nothing but net. Yeah. It happens all the time. Yeah. It doesn't mean it's not likely that a guy could get off 3 shots that quick, but it is possible.
Right. There was more time in there than they originally thought. Mm-hmm. There's some misinformation out there about how condensed that time frame was, and now after they've researched this into fairly well. That time frame extended a little bit, but more importantly, he worked up there, so he had the opportunity to recce that site, right? So it was like he was sitting in a blind, waiting and figuring out, what am I going to be doing here? And that's a tremendous advantage. And clear daylight, target's moving right in a line with you. There's no wind.
Not only that, it's not that far a shot.
No, it's not.
It's not like everybody thinks it's like a half mile away or something like that. I mean, how far was it? It was 150 yards or something like that?
Yeah, I'd have to go back, and it's been a while now. But I've stood on that spot where the limo was and looked up at the site. And I stood up there and looked down, and it's not that far. And
it's a total makeable shot on a deer. Yeah, like if you were going to shoot a deer with a rifle, you'd be like, oh yeah, that's definitely in my effective range.
Yeah, no, there was no.
How far is it?
There we go.
265 feet, 81 meters. That ain't shit.
Yeah.
That's a bow shot.
Yeah.
You could shoot an animal with a bow from 80 meters if you're really good and there's no wind.
Yeah.
So that's a really close shot. So the idea that he couldn't make that shot, he's a bad shot, that is so fucking stupid. He absolutely could make that shot. And that anybody could make that shot from 81 meters. That's nothing.
We looked at the grassy knoll issue. We looked at what the train yard engineer reported seeing with a sort of a puff of smoke that he thought he saw over by the fence line. And we looked and we thought, yeah, you could, from that position, they opened that place up and we were able to go back up there and you could see it. We ran a couple of tests and fired off a few shots, and that's always fun. If you want to have a good time, take a rifle to Dealey Plaza and fire off a few shots without the tourists knowing what the hell is happening. And the Dallas police, by the way, were tremendous during the course of that. But
When did you guys do this?
We did this a while back for a show called America Declassified, which isn't running anymore, but it was on Travel Channel.
Jesse Ventura did that. He went up there with a Manlinker Carcano, same rifle. And he was like, "This is an impossible shot. No one could make this shot. It can't be done. Can't be done." And I love Jesse. I think he's awesome. But I'm like,
but
he wants everything to be a conspiracy.
Right.
You know, he's significantly on that side to the point where, you know, he's leaning always towards a conspiracy.
Yeah, what you want to do is you want to do every investigation. This company that I've got, we do a lot of investigations, and you've got to build, just like with a homicide case or anything else, you've got to build it on stable ground, right?
Right.
So you have to start from the very basics, because if you start building ideas and investigative inquiries on something that's not sturdy underneath it, not based on evidence and fact, then you got a problem. The whole thing becomes suspect and usually comes toppling down. So, you got to keep an open mind about all these things, and I think it's important. Right now, people are going, "Oh, well, I'm sure that the CIA was involved, so I'm a terrible source of information." I've heard that before. I said, "You can't talk credibly about this because, the CIA was involved." And I think,
but here's the thing: if the CIA was involved, it's not you. You weren't there in 1962.
Last time I checked, I was not there in 1962. And also, I will tell you this much.
Or was it 63?
It was 63. 63. If the agency had been involved, this is the honest to God's truth, there's no way that secret is still kept. People can't keep their yap shut. They can't. And secrets have a way of coming out, and certainly a lot quicker now than they used to. So...
Now, but the secrets then, we're talking about so long ago. How much, we're talking about more than 50 years ago. Like,
it's
what would get out?
It's like the D.B. Cooper issue. My biggest reason for believing D.B. Cooper died and his chute is hanging up a tree, and that's a vast wilderness up there, is that people just, they can't help themselves. At some point, people talk, or somebody talks, somebody associated with, or someone nearby, or somebody involved, or somebody on their deathbed, or somebody says something they shouldn't have. It's, the idea that they've maintained this sort of secret over a period of time, I find hard to believe. I'm not discounting it entirely. Again, you've got to leave a little space open for something that could be just amazing. Mm-hmm. But, anyway, so that was that. But I agree. That shot was not a tough shot.
81 meters ain't shit. That's nothing.
And particularly in those conditions. And I will say, those conditions were ideal, unfortunately, for that event.
But people are like... There's a video of me shooting a fucking hard drive at 100 yards. A hard drive.
You must have hated that hard drive.
On the edge. Well, we were just getting rid of some hard drives. We thought it'd be fun to take it to the rifle range. So I take it to the rifle, and obviously we're dealing with modern rifles. They're probably more accurate. But I'm shooting something that's basically 2 inches high, laying it down on the ground at 100 yards and blowing it to smithereens. Yeah. That's how accurate a rifle is at 100 yards. You telling me he couldn't get a headshot at 81 meters? That's crazy.
Again,
of course he could.
No wind.
Of course he could.
Good light.
Did he, though?
Did he? That's right. Yeah.
That's the question.
And also the other question is, we have some pretty good indications as to what he was thinking and what his motivations were, and that's important.
Well, he definitely was in with the Russians. He definitely was involved in a lot of weird shit with communism. Mm-hmm. Who knows what his entire full background was, because there was a lot of covert shit going on.
Right. And did he express a desire to do something like this to the Russians at some point, and they, thought, okay, well, here's an interesting opportunity.
Right.
Well, yeah, they would have sparked on that, and they would have thought about it. Would they have actually, no play on words intended, but would they have pulled the trigger on an operation trying to push him into doing an act like this?
Maybe.
No, indirectly through the Cubans, exactly.
Especially if they thought, like, this crazy fuck might go ahead and do this for us.
Yeah. So,
and this is after the Bay of Pigs. People have to realize there was a lot of people pissed off at Kennedy. We lost a lot of people.
Khrushchev hated
everybody.
Khrushchev hated Kennedy.
Yeah.
And so...
Well, that infamous video where he's banging his shoe down on the table, "We will bury you."
Yeah. Yeah, no, it was... The environment was right for them. And again, the Russians, it shouldn't be any surprise to anybody when you talk about what they did during this election. They've been doing this forever. You go back to 1940s, and the Russians were, spending a lot of time, effort, and money here in the States trying to keep us out of the war back before Hitler invaded Russia and when they were allied with the Nazis still. So they spent a lot of time. They set up, independent associations. Supposedly, they paid off a lot of unions and union members. They, journalists. I mean, they were doing everything they could to create this or to strengthen the idea of isolationism, just to keep us out. They've been doing this for as long as they've been around.
Right.
So anybody who says, "Well, I can't," it's shocking the Russians would be engaged in this. It's ridiculous.
They've always been engaged,
Yeah.
and we, by the way, have been engaged doing that with them.
What?
That's what I hear.
I've
heard that online.
I find that
Alex Jones told
hard
me.
to believe.
The thing that bothers me the most about the Kennedy
Okay.
assassination is the universal support for the magic bullet theory. I think that fucking bullet is ridiculous. I've shot things. I've shot a lot of things. I know what happens to bullets. Everybody that I know that's a marksman, everybody I know that's a hunter, they see a bullet that has hit bone. It fucking never looks like that. When a bullet goes through two people and comes out looking like you shot it into a pool of water, that's what it looks like. I don't buy that at all. And the convenience of finding it on Connolly's gurney when they roll him into the hospital. Oh, look, guys, we found the bullet.
Got it.
And it's perfect.
Got it.
I don't buy that for a fucking second. And the problem is there's more metal fragments in Connolly's body than we're missing from the bullet itself.
Yeah.
I think that bullet itself, look at that bullet. Get the fuck out of here. That thing didn't hit shit.
No, it's exactly right.
I've argued with this with people that have never shot guns, and they go, well, actually, it's proven. They broke bones.
Yeah.
When a bullet breaks bones, they get fucked. Well, it's a jacketed bullet. When a jacketed bullet breaks bones, it gets fucked.
Yeah.
You're talking about something that's going, I mean, how fast does a bullet from that rifle go? It's got to be.
Kind of that would be an interesting thing to pull up, but
I would imagine it's in the thousands of feet per second. It's got to be. When it hits bone, it's just going to blow all over the fucking
point being,
place.
there's always distortion, even if you're,
Always.
I mean, so I
don't buy that bullet.
When you have a conversation about this, and it is somebody who has no shooting experience, or it just, you think, all right, that's fine. I understand why you're fascinated by it, but when you do your research. It's like with news. Read everything, right? Read the Wall Street Journal, read the New York Times, read the Financial Times, read the Economist, but read everything.
Yes.
Before you form your opinion, right? And everybody's so siloed nowadays, and you get the same thing with conspiracy theories. I absolutely believe this, and I'm gonna discount everything else that's out there.
Yeah.
Or just not pay any attention to it. Yeah, but
it's hard to say. And here's another thing: the magic bullet path. People are like, well, how is that possible? Well, let me tell you something. That's the most believable thing about the magic bullet theory is the path of the bullet, because bullets do wacky shit when they hit bone, and you can't predict it at all. I know a guy who in Iraq they shot a guy in the head from the front, and it went out his eyeball. The bullet came out of his eyeball back forward.
Yeah.
It ricocheted inside of his skull and came out his eye.
Yeah, you can't. I mean, again, you can't. You're right. You can't predict it. They'll try to model these things and figure out a way, but there's an unknown there. And so, yeah, I agree. I mean, I think that again, it's one of those things where it's never going to get resolved, and it's going to continue to live on because it was such an important event in the history of the country. And B, I keep coming back to that same thing. People don't want to believe that really awful shit can happen sometimes in a very simple, straightforward way. And so it's much easier to think it was a broad-based conspiracy. There were lots of moving parts. Sometimes bad shit happens, and it's just as simple as it seems.
That is possible. Conversely, people don't like to believe in conspiracies, especially when it's involved in an assassination of a president.
Right.
The reason why they came up with the whole magic bullet theory in the first place is pretty shady. In fact, the reason why they did is because the guy got hit by a ricochet underneath the overpass. And they blamed that bullet on one of the shots from Lee Harvey Oswald in the book depository. So they said, well, all right, so now we have less bullets that could have hit Kennedy. We have all these wounds, and we have to attribute a series of wounds to one bullet.
Right.
And so that was the thought process behind it. But the Zapruder film was the one that got people weirded out by it. But I'll tell you what, man, I've watched that film a bunch of times. And one of the things that don't jive is if he did get hit from the front, his head goes back to the left, why does the blood spray out forward? See, it's weird the way the impact of the blood is. It's like the blood sprays forward and then his head goes back into the left. It could have possibly been that he was hit from the front and the back at the same time. That's entirely possible. I mean, that is a tactic you would do, right? You would roll someone into an area where they would be in a crossfire and they would get shot from both sides.
If they came in, if the grassy knoll was in fact a second site for a shooter, then by the time it hits that corner and starts its path just before the shots were fired from the book depository in Oswald. If you're going with that, if you had another shooter up on the grass, you're basically looking right at the front of the vehicle, and because of the way that it's positioned and the knoll's kind of turned, and then it's just that there's not a lot of concealment up there, right? And they had the fence, the picket fence. It's not the original one that's there anymore, but it's basically in line with it. And there's plenty of pictures of the previous fence that was up there at the time. And you did have the train yard engineer report sometime after the fact that he saw a puff of smoke, that he wasn't quite sure what that was all about, and he'd seen a couple of people back there. So that's an interesting thread to pull on, right? And I think that it's been researched ad nauseum. Doesn't mean you couldn't still find something. Right?
It also doesn't mean anybody's going to really find a conclusion after the fact.
Right.
Especially today.
Yeah. No, and that's right. And it's like everything else as time marches on. You lose witnesses. You lose people that were there on site.
And then even witnesses. When someone gets shot, especially when the president gets shot,
not credible.
You'll have 5 different stories from 5 different people, and gunshots heard from the moon. Nobody knows what the fuck's happening.
From a robbery, just from a street crime. Accident. Yeah, a car accident. You say, what did you see? If you separate people out, you're right. You get 5 different versions from 5 different people.
Yeah.
And eyewitness accounts tend not to be particularly credible, and you've got to you've got to take them, and then you've got to match it up with other information you can pull together forensically. But it is fascinating.
Episode 2378 with Charlie Sheen, Joe Rogan breaks down JFK's assassination theories and disputed evidence.
It became a thing.
2284 with Ian Carroll, Joe breaks down JFK autopsy mysteries, missing evidence, and deadly witness. Episode number 2300 features Joe Rogan and Kyle Dunnigan unpacking Oliver Stone's JFK